My father always stood a little taller in rooms where he believed he owned something. That morning in probate court, he stood very tall. "The 3 vacation homes in the Florida Keys are ours," he said, hands resting confidently on the edge of the table. "We've maintained them for years. Paid taxes. Upkeep. My mother intended for them to stay in the family." The phrasing was careful. Intent. "Family ours," my mother nodded beside him, composed, sympathetic. She had chosen a soft blue suit, approachable but dignified. I sat at the opposite table with my attorney and a slim folder that looked unimpressive compared to their stack of holiday dinners, fishing trips, grandchildren on docks at sunset. They had brought memories. I had brought paperwork. The houses were modest cottages. 3 waterfront properties purchased over a decade, renovated slowly. My grandmother had called them her storm shelters. Both literal and financial. She trusted hard assets more than markets. When she began structuring her estate, I was the only one who showed up consistently for the meetings. Not because I was favored. Because I listened. She didn't want the properties sold. She didn't want them divided impulsively. And she was aware, painfully aware, of how quickly my parents treated shared assets as assumed entitlements. So she created a trust, and she named me trustee. At the time, my father had laughed. "Paperwork," he'd said. "Your grandmother loves paperwork." I didn't correct him. Now he was petitioning the court to dissolve that same trust, arguing that I had failed to act in the family's best interest. By refusing to transfer deed ownership to him directly, he described me as inflexible, detached, unwilling to cooperate. He did not mention that I had offered structured usage agreements, maintenance budgets, and equal scheduling access. Control, for him, was not about access, it was about title. When his attorney finished outlining the petition, my lawyer stood. He did not begin with rebuttal. He handed a sealed envelope to the clerk. "Your Honor, we would ask that you review Exhibit D before ruling on standing." Judge Martinez, late 60s, steady, unhurried, adjusted his glasses and opened the envelope. Inside was a letter my grandmother had written 6 months before her passing. Not a will amendment. Not a formal codicil. A letter addressed to the trustee. To me. The courtroom grew quiet in the particular way rooms do when paper becomes heavier than voices. The judge read silently at first, then, unexpectedly, a small breath of sound left him, not amusement, exactly. More like recognition. "Well," he murmured. "This is interesting." My father shifted slightly. Judge Martinez looked up. "This letter outlines concerns about prior attempts by certain family members to pressure for direct title transfer." He flipped a page. "It also explicitly states that the trustee is to maintain sole control over sale, transfer, or restructuring of the Florida properties to prevent impulsive liquidation." He removed his glasses and looked directly at my father. "Mr. Bennett, this letter contradicts your testimony regarding your mother's intent." My father's face did not collapse dramatically, it drained. My mother's hand tightened around her purse strap. Judge Martinez continued, voice evened. "The trust instrument remains valid. The trustee has acted within her authority. This petition to dissolve appears unsupported by both the trust terms and documented intent." He paused just long enough for the meaning to settle. Petition denied. No gavel slam. No raised voice, just record, outside the courtroom. The hallway felt warmer than it should have. My father approached first. "You blindsided us," he said quietly. I considered that. The letter had existed for years. Filed. Cataloged. Accessible. I followed the terms. I replied, "This is family property." My mother added. Her voice thinner now. "It still is," I said. "Just not individually owned." They didn't argue further, because the argument had already ended. The 3 homes remain in the trust. They're maintained on schedule. Rented occasionally to offset costs. Available to family under structured agreements. My parents still visit one of them each winter. They sign the usage contract now. The first time my father sent the signed form back to me, I noticed his signature was smaller than usual. I don't feel victorious. I feel precise. My grandmother anticipated pressure. She built protection into the structure. I simply honored it. What unsettles my parents isn't that they lost property. It's that they lost assumption. For years, they mistook silence for surrender. My willingness to handle logistics quietly for lack of leverage. In court, leverage didn't require volume. It required memory and documentation. The next time I visited the Keys, the tide was low and steady. The houses stood where they always had. Unbothered by courtroom dynamics. Ownership, I've learned, is less about who speaks loudest and more about who prepares longest. I didn't destroy anything. I just refused to hand it over. And sometimes, that's enough to make people pale.